There are seasons where life hasn't caught up with your faith, or your faith hasn't caught up with your life. I call these yet seasons. You're doing the right things, you're staying steady, you're being consistent, and the outcome that you hope for still hasn't come to pass. This episode is for that space. Those times when you need something to fill in the gap, to hold you steady. Welcome back to the Quiet Impact Podcast. And this is where introverted leaders and entrepreneurs can learn to amplify their presence, profit from their purpose, and lead without compromising their peace. This space that I'm talking about is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about choosing a posture of belief, of steadfastness, and trust while the work is still unfolding. If you've been quietly carrying the vision and you've been doing it responsibly and hopefully without visible confirmation yet, this episode will meet you there and leave you steadier. You're not behind, you're not weak, you're not doing it wrong. Tune in and listen to what I have to share with you about courageous joy. Welcome to the Quiet Impact Podcast, where we nurture the journey of introverts who desire to achieve greater levels of influence, income, and impact. The go-to podcast for introvert achievers just like you, seeking purpose-driven growth. I am your host, Stephanie Oden. This episode is for those moments when life hasn't caught up with your faith yet. When you're doing the right things, you're staying steady, and you're still not seeing the outcome you hope for. Courageous joy matters because it reframes joy as something you can hold now, not something you can earn later. It reminds you that joy doesn't require denial, perfection, or certainty. It requires courage. In a season where many people feel pressure to stay positive or silent about the hard parts, this episode offers a different invitation. This episode is where your belief and your honesty can coexist, where, your faith doesn't cancel your tears, or your tears don't cancel your faith, where continuing to show up is already an act of leadership. Self-leadership, but sometimes leadership because you never know who's looking. You never know who's watching. You never know who's seeing your journey. This conversation is for you. I want you to lean in and, if you've been quietly carrying that responsibility, that vision, that hope, while things are still unresolved, I want you to, at the end of this episode, feel seen and not rush. Seen and not feel like you're broken or you need to be fixed. It's not about forcing joy. It's about choosing it as this posture, as a practice, and as your source of strength while, the work is still unfolding. That masterpiece that you are is still unfolding. Now, I want to be clear. I've said it before. It's not about pretending things are fine when they're not. It's about the courage it takes to choose joy when life throat punches you, or when it's unfinished, or you have dreams that have not been achieved yet. We're not shy, we're not timid, we're not needing to be fixed. We're an introvert, and that is our superpower. Introverted, AFF, absolutely fabulous and feisty. One of the things that I think about when I think about courageous joy, it's a dawn in a darkness. And that's a crazy way of looking at it, because you think, how can that be? How can you have a darkness and a dawn? But it's that calmness of dawn when it looks dark. It is joyriding in the jalopy of life. You're not waiting for a luxury upgrade. You're continuing to do the things. It's a decision to stay aligned when circumstances have not caught up with your faith yet. I had this angel, and ironically, it was courageous joy. I had gotten it, a couple of years back. A friend gave it to me, And it's set very, you could see it in some of the earlier episodes. It's set back on one of my desks, and arms up high, and it was Courageous Joy. And quite ironically, at the opening games of this season, where some hard stuff is going on, right when I felt like I needed it most, my Courageous Joy angel fell and broke. It was unexpected. It was a simple fall. She'd fallen before. But what's so interesting about it, that reminded me that Courageous Joy was not held in the figurine. It's not a symbol you put on a shelf. Courageous Joy is a belief you carry. It's what James talks about in the Bible when he says, "Count it all joy." Not because it all feels good, but because you know something good is being formed. He talks about us facing trials of many kinds because trials produce perseverance. And perseverance, when it finishes its work, leaves us mature, complete, and lacking nothing. Now, I get you may not believe like I believe. I get that. However, there's something true to that. That when we come out on the other side and we're better than who we were, that means we have a bigger container from which to serve. So, in other words, joy is not the reward at the end. Joy is the posture you hold while the work is happening, while the work in you is happening, while you're being built up to stand at that next level, while you're being elevated. But look, let's be honest. The nights feel heavy. The arrows that come in the day shows up, faith showed up. The things that stalk us in our minds in the dark, and those pressures that show up on a day-to-day basis. And yet, a posture of Courageous Joy says, I will not let these be my narrator. Courageous Joy is not the absence of pain. It is a refusal to let the pain cancel the belief. It is held in transparency, in praise that includes tears, in worship that is honest and not polished. All can be true at the same time. The praise, the tears, the worship, the honesty. I listened to and I read the book, Joseph Murphy's book, Power of a Subconscious Mind, and he talks about what we hold vividly in our mind impresses upon our subconscious. And out of that, we make decisions. Well, then joy becomes an inner conviction before it becomes an outer reality. And I like what Brene Brown said when she talked about joy being one of the most vulnerable emotions that we can experience, because it takes joy to stay open and present when disappointment is possible and is happening. One of my mentors, Lisa Nichols, often talks about joy is choosing to tell the truth about where you are without disqualifying where you are going. And the man, John Maxwell, reminds us that leadership is practiced daily, not in moments of convenience. So too is joy, courageous joy. So here are 5 ways you can practice courageous joy. 1, count it before you see it. Courageous joy is rooted in faith. It holds evidence vividly in the mind before it exists physically. You choose joy because you trust that the process is working, even when the picture is incomplete. Number 2, let praise and gratitude and tears all coexist. This is not a performative thing. You do not have to be unbothered to be faithful. You're allowed to grieve and still believe. Courageous joy makes room for all of that. Number 3, Keep doing what you know is right. Joy is found in the keep doing this, showing up, staying consistent, moving towards the service that you are providing to others, moving towards developing yourself in the ways that you know that are going to present you better as you move into that space. Continuing to walk in belief. And you've heard me talk about this before, walk in belief without the applause. Number 4, let go of what is no longer aligned. Courageous joy requires release. Old identity, old expectations from other people, and some from yourself. Old versions of how you thought it would happen or how you wished it would happen. And listen, letting go is not failure. It's not giving up. It is preparation. Number 5, prosper others before your hands are blessed. This one matters deeply. Courageous joy gives from conviction, not surplus. It serves before confirmation. It shows up. It's a posture because you know increase needs somewhere to go. You know increase needs a place to be planted. You know increase needs a place to flourish. And why does courageous joy take courage? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. It takes courage to be joyful when life's not cooperating, the timeline is unclear, you planted on background and it didn't bear any fruit, the outcome is not guaranteed, and things are hard, even when we're in our best positive state. It takes courage to be joyful when, fill in the blank, you put yours in there. But if you have faith, the evidence of things not seen but held vividly in your mind, in your gut, in your heart, in your whole being, then courageous joy becomes possible. Not because we're naive. We're not naive. We are achievers. Like we're extremely realistic. We're extremely thoughtful. We're extremely logical. We're extremely practical. So it's not that we're naive, but because we know what is forming. So if you're listening to this while you're holding your joy carefully, I want you to know this. You're not behind. You're not weak. You're not doing it wrong. I encourage you to take up and get that position of courageous joy. Let that become one of those cornerstones of your life, of your business, of your leadership. Not because everything is easy, but because you trust that it is working for your good. And that trust changes everything. Everything. Courageous joy. So save this episode for when you need a reminder. Until next time, from my heart to yours, I wish you courageous joy. That's it for this episode of the Quiet Impact Podcast. Thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Let me know any insights that you had from this episode. I would love to hear your takeaways. Remember to head to my website, grab a copy of the Success Pillars for Quiet Achievers. It's a resource I created for you. And join us next week. Thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing. See you next time.